Hi, this is Mary Jo. I sure wish I could be with you in person today, but with COVID and all, and me nursing a broken ankle, I think best if I just do this little recording. But I do like to tell you, I grew up in a Christian home and I believed in Jesus, and I wanted to follow God, but in the process of schooling, I got taught evolution, and I got really messed up, and I didn't know what to do with it. So in high school, I just drew a big line right down the middle, and I put creation in the Bible and my belief in God on one side, and I put evolution and what I thought was science on the other side of that line. And it sort of worked for me in high school. But then I went to a church college, and during my first year at that church college, I was taught evolution. Now, they said, that you could combine the two. And so I thought, well, evolution is the scientific explanation, and creation is a religious explanation. And yeah, let's fit them together. That works okay. And maybe Genesis, they told me, wasn't really true history. It was periods of time, millions of years long. And Genesis was just a myth that was written for primitive people who couldn't understand the science of evolution. They told me that those days represented many eons of time and so on, and that God must have used evolution as his method of creation. And I thought, oh, good, now the wall comes down, right? I can put these two ideas together. Problem was, and I didn't know it at the time, but the problem was it was bad science and bad religion, bad theology, because it doesn't work either way. But it kind of got me through college without totally rejecting my faith. I managed to hang on to my faith a little bit, but my life was a mess. And I fell to the peer pressure as well as this kind of teaching in college, and spent several years wandering around in the darkness, you might say, until finally God got a hold of me. I started growing back with the Lord and solid in my faith. I still didn't approach this evolution issue though. And finally, we were teaching at a little college up in Alaska, again, a little supposedly Christian school, but they didn't care that we believed in evolution or taught evolution. But God has a way of intervening. And one day I was shopping in a little secondhand store, and I found a little book called Evolution, The Fossils Say No. I bought that book for 5 cents, and that 5 cents turned our lives around. I read it and I thought, wow, if this guy's really telling us the truth, he knows something we don't know. We better do some research. And then my husband read it, Dave, and he comes from more of a geological, paleontological training. Mine was more in biology. And Dave read this book, and he's going, this guy's either nuts or he's got a good point. We better look into it more. So we started researching everything we could find about this idea of creation, and from both science and the Bible. And over a period of time, you might say we evolved from evolutionists to creationists. It didn't take millions of years, but it did take a period of time while we were doing that research. And at the time, we were really excited because we were growing in the Lord, and we thought, oh, this is neat that there's science that supports Scripture. We didn't really see the spiritual significance of the whole issue, though, until we were talking with a student of ours. And this student, by the name of Jeff, had been raised in a Christian home. By the time we got to know him, he'd totally rejected his faith. And Dave and Jeff would go out fishing, and they'd go boating and do all kinds of stuff. And Jeff actually even lived with us for a short period of time. But one day Jeff said to Dave, I just can't buy this Jesus stuff. And Dave said, why not, Jeff? And he said, well, because evolution is a fact. That means Genesis is false. And if God can't get the first book of the Bible right, why would I believe anything else he has to say? And Jeff had a really good point, didn't he? If you know that the author is lying to you at the beginning of a book, why would you read the rest of it? It wouldn't make any sense. But we had Dr. Henry Morris from the Institute for Creation Research come up to our little school up there in Alaska. He did a series of presentations, and Jeff came. And at the end of that time, Jeff came to us and he says, wow, if evolution isn't true, that doesn't leave much, does it? He said, I better start doing some thinking. And within just a little while after that, within a couple of months, Jeff became a Christian, because now he saw he had a foundation in Scripture. Now he could understand there is a creator and that mankind was created in the image of God, that we have a very special place. We're not just animals, that we have a special place in God's creation, and that God cares deeply for human beings. But he also found from Genesis that sin entered the world, and Adam and Eve made a bad choice, and through their choice, sin and death entered the world. And that sin passed to the whole world, and we all need a Savior. And so for Jeff, this whole issue of creation and evolution was foundational. He couldn't even take a look at the gospel until he had that stumbling block removed. Now, other students, maybe they don't recognize it quite like that, but the evolutionary teaching is just bombing the faith of so many Christian kids. And it's keeping a lot of kids who were not raised in the church away from even ever considering the gospel. And so we see this creation evolution as an extremely important issue in helping our young people to stand firm on what the Bible teaches and to walk with the Lord in their life. And so we're excited that you're going to be a part of this seminar. Dave's going to be coming soon here with a message for you, and later on through the week, some of our other staff. We're very excited to have you here, and I'm looking forward to this time. God bless you.
Hey, I'm Dave Nutting with Alpha Omega Institute. It's good to be with you for this session. This particular session is called a Design or Chance. By the way, before we get started with that, we have a free newsletter that you can sign up for. Go to our website at discovercreation.org and sign up for that, or just call the office at 970-523-9943. But anyhow, it's a free newsletter, comes out once every 2 months with some good information for you and your family. The session of the day is, can you really believe your Bible? We're going to be talking about grand design or blind chance. That's the topic. Many people think creation is just a religious myth, whereas evolution, well, that's science. Well, it turns out that evolution really isn't science at all. It is a philosophy posing as science. It is also the pillar of what's called the naturalistic worldview. That means you can explain everything in the universe without God whatsoever. Naturalism is what it's called. Well, that is a faith statement in of itself. Let me explain that. What does naturalism teach? How did the universe come into being? Well, according to Discover magazine, that's 100% committed to the philosophy or worldview of naturalism. Everything came about by accidents, right? How did the universe come about? Here's what they say right on the front cover. The universe burst into something from absolutely nothing. Zero. Nada. And as it got bigger, it became filled with even more stuff that came from absolutely nowhere. How is that possible? You know, that's a good question. How is it possible? How can you get an explosion all of a sudden producing everything and nothing exploded? That doesn't sound like science, does it? It sounds like a philosophy of how we got here on planet Earth. I look out, I see evidence that cries out things appear to be created with a design. And that's what we're talking about today. That's exactly what it says in Romans. We can actually see that God created. We can tell something about the Creator. However, we also see that it's talking about people who will not honor God as God or give Him thanks. And in Romans 1:22, it says, because of that, professing to be wise, they became fools. Now, I don't want God calling me a fool. I want to acknowledge Him in my heart, in my life, and I hope you do too. Many people who don't care for what we do say, you can't tell if something was designed. Well, I think you can. Look at even a one-cell creature like the radial area. What do you see? Tremendous design right there. At least in my mind, it's design. And I look at a painting like this one right here and ask a question. You can't tell if it was designed? Well, how did that happen? Well, maybe it came about as an explosion in a paint factory. No, that's not going to work, is it? And I know it was designed because I saw my mother paint that thing. Anyhow, we can tell design. When I look at a spider, I see tremendous design. For instance, their one strand of silk is actually stronger than steel, and 5 times stronger. And why? It's because it's not a single strand. It is a woven together strand of multiple parts. And what that means is the backside of a spider is a special weaving factory. What that tells me is it was designed because weaving factories don't happen by accident. They're well designed. When you look at the dolphins, you find out they have a special way of keeping cool, and it happens to be through their dorsal fin. It acts just like the radiator of your automobile, with blood being pumped up into the dorsal fin and going side by side with the water, and all of a sudden gets plenty cool, goes back down into the rest of the body, and then cools the rest of the system. It's amazing. So how is that explained? Through naturalism. Well, according to Discover magazine, again, 100% committed to naturalism, they say this graceful mammal avoids such a fate, which is baking to death, by slipping through the loopholes in the laws of physiology. That's their explanation. Well, it sounds scientific, but it doesn't say anything. It's just a bunch of scientific terminology, but it does not explain that particular design of the dolphins. For years, we've been talking about the bombardier beetle system of being able to mix a couple of different chemicals together, all the storage compartments, all the apparatus working at the same time. We asked, how did that happen? Can you imagine the first beetle that tried to evolve something that's going to produce a fiery blast into the face of an enemy? Finally got the right chemicals, didn't have all the apparatus, blew himself up, didn't he? You didn't get a better beetle, you have a dead beetle. So anyhow, when I look at the bombardier beetle, what do I see? Evidence of creation with everything working together at the same time. The sea anemone is a fun creature. At the end of every one of those tentacles happens to be a poison missile system. It's spring-loaded, poison on the tip, there's a trigger and a trap door. A fish comes along, hits that trigger, opens a trap door, now the sea anemone gets a meal. Now you might say, how would you like to eat one of those sea anemones with all those poison missiles? Of course not. You get a massive bellyache. But the sea slug does eat the sea anemone, swallows everything whole. Everything is digested except for one thing, those poison missiles. Those are now rattling around his stomach. What's he going to do with them? Well, he transports them up into his own tentacles because he has no ability to manufacture his own poison dart system. Once these are transported to the end of the tentacle, first fish comes along, hits that trigger, bam, this missile fires again. Wow, what you are looking at is a creature that pirates another's missile system and uses it for his own. How did that happen? By evolutionary processes over millions of years. I think this is great evidence of design. We also talk a lot about the woodpecker. They have tremendous design features. They're living jackhammers, and they hit their head against that tree so hard they would fold their beak up like an accordion, except it's very strong. And the impact would cause their eyeballs to pop out of their head, except for a special design film that closes down every time he hits the head against a tree. And that keeps the eyeballs in, the wood chips out. It's a living jackhammer, like I say. But why is he doing such a strange thing? Well, he's hungry. We do strange things too when we're hungry. And so what he hears is a bug on the inside of the bark of the tree. He is going after it. And the bug would get away and down one of its tunnels inside the bark of the tree, except for the long tongue of the woodpecker. That tongue is about 4.5 times longer than his skull. What's he going to do with that? Where's he going to put it? If he leaves it in his mouth, he's going to choke to death. If he leaves it hang out, he's going to chop it right in half, isn't he? Well, here's the storage compartment for that tongue, for woodpeckers, flickers, etc. The tongue comes out of the back of the mouth, wraps around the skull, and attaches up there in the beak region. It's elastic, like a rubber band, and muscles inside the neck pull it down into the chest cavity. This is a unique storage compartment. There's another added feature to it too. It's a special sheath that the tongue fits within. How did all of that happen by accident? What good is a long tongue without the storage compartment? But what good is a storage compartment if you don't have a long tongue? Everything had to happen at the same time. That speaks to me of creation. If you want to know more about some of these design features, go to our website, discovercreation.org. We have a special kids program, and Lanny has put together a video specifically for kids talking about some of those design features. Really important to do it. In other lectures, we talk about the amazing evidence of design, like in the eye. Well, we're not going to talk about that today, but what are the evolutionary responses? What evidence do they provide when we say things were designed? Well, one of the big ones is to try to find fault. That's the fault finders, okay? Try to find some kind of a fault. And the idea is, if I can show a fault, that means there could not have been a God who designed it in the first place, especially if I can design it better than this God of yours designed it. And that's exactly what Dr. Richard Dawkins says. He looks at the eye and says, design? If it is a design, it's absurd design. And there's material right in the line of vision. If you move it over to the side, you can see better. Well, he's half right on that, except for one thing. If he walked outside on a bright sunny day with the eye designed like he says it should be designed, he would be blind in about 2 hours. So I say, God knows what he was doing. Let's go to Richard Dawkins again. He says, why, do you realize you breathe through the same tube that you swallow food with? Why, you could choke to death. And then he calls this supposed design of the system that our God made the height of stupidity. That's a direct quote. Boy, that's a pretty direct, isn't it? And arrogant. But really, I think God knew what he was doing there too. I think it's superbly engineered. And by the way, let me ask a question. How many of you listening to me right now choke to death today? I guess none of you, right? So something actually is working, isn't it? And by the way, where would Dr. Dawkins put an extra tube? How would he get food that gets stuck partway down out? You know, would he run a fish hook down? Pull it out? How about a big giant plunger? Boom, boom, boom. Maybe that's how we get it out of there. No, we have that wind that can push the food out, and that can keep us from choking, of course. And do you realize I can't even be here speaking if this design wasn't there? Because speaking is not just air. It is actually the position of the tongue and the teeth and the roof of the mouth, etc., in order to be able to come up with the sound and correct speech. And so I think this thing is superbly engineered, like the Swiss Army knife, where everything in one small compartment and a bunch of multifunctional tools. That's an evidence to me of design. Think about my computer. Do you realize how superbly designed that thing is? There's no way I could even think about how to do it. But my computer won't even come close to what the computer in your brain will do. It works much better and multitasks and actually is faster. And so my contention is this: if your brain is better than my computer, and my computer was designed, then I believe your computer, your brain was designed as well. Now, think about it. There are over let me say, total number of synapses or connectors in a brain is roughly equals the number of stars in 1,500 Milky Way sized galaxies. Do you realize how big that is? How many? Yeah, a bunch. Okay, but anyhow, and that's all in one little brain, no bigger than your fist, roughly. And you say, wow, we have an amazing God, don't we? So how does naturalism answer this? Here's what they would say. Perhaps an early cell billions of years ago developed a sensitivity to other cells, and then it is conceivable that it's on its way to becoming a human brain. Well, let me clue you in on a couple of things. The word perhaps and conceivable are not scientific. Those aren't scientific words. They're ideas, they're guesses. Anyhow, so that's what naturalism has to resort to, a perhaps argument. And by the way, they did find a fossil. They were able to do a scan on it of this crustacean. It turns out it's exactly like the crustacean living today. It wasn't on its way to becoming a brain, it's already there. Fully functional, and we find that in the fossil record. How many have heard that DNA in our body, much of it was junk DNA, left over from millions of years of evolution? Many textbooks used to say that it was our DNA was 98.5% junk. Well, it turns out that is totally false. That is now even being taken out of textbooks because they're realizing junk DNA is not junk. You're going to hear Brian talk more about that a little later too. Our DNA system, it's a computer system. And in fact, it's a storage compartment. Here's what Dr. Robert Carter says about the high-tech cell. It is the most complex information storage mechanism in the known universe. Did it happen by accident? I'd say not. And in fact, he keeps on going with it. He said, the genome is a multidimensional operating system for an ultra-complex biological computer. Already sounds pretty sophisticated, doesn't it? But now look at what he says. It has built-in error correction and self-modification codes. Boy, I'd like that if my computer would do it. There are multiple overlapping systems in the DNA and RNA codes, and allows it for making more like 100,000 distinct proteins. That's a lot, and that's just one operating system here. You can get that on his DVD, The High-Tech Cell. You can order that from discovercreation.org, our website, and only $10. It's well worth it. Get that video. Get that video. So how do those who believe in naturalism or evolutionary thinking, especially in the atheist camp, how would they explain all of this tremendous design? Well, usually we get one major answer. Because they're committed to naturalism. They will say, we can imagine how mutations and natural selection acting over millions of years might refine or produce systems. Keep in mind one thing. The word imagine, the word might are not scientific words, are they? They're just thoughts and one way to try to explain it away. And by the way, mutation and natural selection doesn't work. According to Dr. John Sanford, Cornell University professor at the time, he found out and wrote a book on it called Genetic Entropy, in which case he said, no, mutation and natural selection is dead. Forget it. It does not work. And you can get that book from our website as well. And so the whole primary axiom of Darwinian evolution, that evolution proceeds by mutation and natural selection, is a misnomer. It's out, according to his theory. And yet we hear that as a good explanation for everything, all the way through universities, high schools, even middle schools as well. Well, let me talk to you a little bit about an interesting system that shows to me that mutation and natural selection is not going to provide it. And that is our blood clotting system. In our blood clotting system, we say, once we get a cut, we're going to have to stop that bleeding, right? Well, how do you do that? Here's a bunch of chemicals there. I'm going to make it really simple. First of all, you have to have fibrin to make your blood clot. But if you have a lot of fibrin in your blood right now, you have blood clots throughout your system. So fibrin has to be in an inactive form. And when you get a cut, it's got to be activated. Otherwise, you have blood clots and you'll die. Well, what activates it? A piece of the second word called thrombin. Thrombin activates the fibrinogen, makes your blood clot. Now we're in good shape, aren't we? But what if we have a bunch of thrombin in our blood right now? Well, it turns out we'd be dead again because it'll activate everything. We're going to have blood clots throughout the entire system. So it exists in an inactive form, and something's got to turn it on when you get a cut. And what's that? An activated form of the Stewart factor. We have the same problem there. All of these chemicals are needed. Everyone needs to be turned on or activated. The entire system works, or none of it works at all. That sounds exactly like a design system, doesn't it? By a remarkable engineer. Well, actually, I don't want you to leave here thinking that it's a simple system. It is not. How do you even activate, say, the Stewart factor? Look at all of those steps. They're all needed. They're all in order. And it looks like a design feature to me. And I hope it looks like that way to you as well. And it looks like a creation, a created design. We have molecular motors as well in our systems. Okay, and in other creatures as well that live in conjunction with us. They're molecular motors, and actually they use a whole series of proteins, like about 30 different ones, all working together to produce an electric motor. And it is more efficient than any of our manufactured electric motors today. And when it's all said and done, this electric motor will propel the propeller, the flagellum it's called, rotated up to 30, well, the bushings, etc., rotates up to 30,000 RPMs per minute. That's pretty fast, isn't it? And this thing will go down your bloodstream or other places in the water like a motorboat. It's amazing. If you eliminate one of those proteins, guess what? The whole system shuts down. So everything has to be working at the same time. Everything has to be in place. Slow and gradual processes of Darwinian evolution is not going to produce something like that. So how do the naturalists answer that? Well, Scientific American answered it the following way. Well, perhaps, or we can imagine an explanation here. Well, perhaps and imagine are not scientific words, are they? And that's supposedly coming out of Scientific American, which you should think is scientific. But they did not have a very good answer whatsoever. Now, we talked about molecular motors. Just think about the end of your finger. Just think about it. Do you realize you have more motors, molecular motors, in the end of your finger than all of the electric and gasoline motors combined in the entire world? And you can't even see them, right? That's nanotechnology, small stuff. All these motors, wow, how did that happen? Well, there's over 20,000 types of molecular machines in humans alone, and they're all highly sophisticated. You have folding pumps, valves, force generator, energy producers, labeling machines, delivery, we have cutoff machines, all this sort of stuff. Let me just talk about one right now. How are you going to use your DNA to manufacture a protein that's going to work in one of those molecular motors? Well, here's all the steps that are going to be involved, plus a whole bunch more. First of all, the DNA is tightly packed into the nucleus of your cell. Tightly packed. It's like putting 30 miles worth of string into something the size of a golf ball. So you've got to, first of all, in order to use this, you have to unwind it. So you have to have an unwinding machine. But you don't want to use the original. You want to take the piece now that's going to code for a certain protein, and you need a copy of it. So you have to have a copy machine. And so there's something that copies that piece. And now you take the copy, and now you can cut it to the piece that you want. So you need a cutting machine. All right? Now's the time, once you get that cut, to call UPS delivery, right? And so UPS comes, and they take that copy and bring it over to what's called the ribosome. Now, don't get bogged down with these technical words, okay? That is a machine that involves already more than 300 proteins and RNAs. And basically, it's there to manufacture proteins from the code or the computer program that specifies a specific protein. And it's going to do that. It's the manufacturing plant. Oh, by the way, where are these ribosomes? What you're looking at here in that picture is just basically the structure of the cell. But do you see the small, tiny little polka dots, blue polka dots on there? Those are the ribosome machines that are producing those particular proteins from the code that was given. And in order to work, you have to have not only the DNA manufacturing, you have to have something to regulate how much is going to be produced, how little, etc. And once you send it out of now the ribosome, guess what you have to do? Call UPS again. We need a delivery man because we have to take that protein that's in process of being made, and it's now a long string of beads, and we have to put it into a folding machine because the protein really isn't much good unless it is folded to a specific design, a specific way of doing it. And now, once it's folded, it's ready to go, isn't it? So what do? Call UPS. You got to get it from the folding machine now over to where you need it. In fact, let's just say one of these is being manufactured because it's needed in a machine on the outer edges of the cell, and it's going to make crucial energy for you. So you can stay awake, so you can even live, by the way. And according to David Godsell, it's one of the wonders of the molecular world, this particular machine. This machine that it's going to be part of is one of about 32 proteins that make a grinding machine that's going to actually rotate at about 9,000 RPMs, and it's going to be able to produce the needed energy for that cell. Wow, this is amazing. The tremendous complexity of it. Now, how did it get from where it was over to the outer edges of the cell? Well, UPS guys have to have a highway. They have to have something constructed. So there's highway construction machinery that's going on. And what happens then is once this highway is constructed, now you have your UPS delivery guy. And he is really trucking down the highway that was manufactured. It's like me going at approximately 1,200 miles per hour. And the power to weight ratio is 15 times more efficient than a gas engine. And so, again, that's highly efficient. Howard Berg from Harvard University says these molecular machines are the most efficient machines in the entire universe. Isn't that amazing? And yet, some people say they happen strictly by accident. I say no, they're well designed. So all that machinery was necessary. Interesting, Dr. Richard Dawkins actually said some time ago that there are 4 different ways that you can code for just one of the beads on the string of a protein. 4 ways to get glycine. And he said, well, you know, he's a fault finder. He says, that's redundant. It's wasteful. There can't be a God that did that. Well, he didn't look far enough. He should have asked the question, I wonder why there are 4 different ways. Is there a reason? Well, I mentioned that very high tech precision folding machine. Do you realize that in order for that to work, you have to know exactly how long to fold it, what degree it's going to be folded, and exactly how to do it. It turns out that that particular last letter in the 4 different ways of making glycine is not redundant. It controls the degree and timing of the folding. So all of a sudden we have another level of complexity there that was escaping notice for a long time. And now we know it is not redundant. And here's an article that came out in Frontiers in Genetic. Redundancy of the genetic code enables translational pausing, the degree of the folding, okay? So it's amazing when you look at that. We find out, when we know more, we find out junk DNA and all the things that go along with it are certainly not junk. They look heavily designed. Do you know it takes a lot of faith to believe that the first cell accidentally came onto planet Earth and then proliferated into all the different life that we see? Let's just look at the probability of one simple protein, where the arrow is pointing there. Just to get one protein, that's not a cell, that's not life, that's just one piece of it. The probability of getting one protein, and that's just the string, has nothing to do with the precise folding, etc. The probability is 1 chance in 10 times 10 times 10, 260 times. I showed that to my statistics course I was teaching at the university at one time, and showed them what the probability was, and I said, I don't know what they teach you about these kind of odds in biology, but in statistics we call that 0. And by the way, that was 5 minutes before I heard from the department chairman. They said, oh, you're preaching religion in the classroom. I said, no, I'm just looking at the scientific aspect of this. And so anyhow, no, it's not religion whatsoever. Let me tell you kind of what this odds is like. You know, think about what's your favorite color. Let's say blue. And since the time you were a little child, all right, you had this very important blue marble. Only one ever made like it. And you'd walk down the street, oh, I love that marble. I love my marble. And you'd hide it under your pillow at night. Probably still do, don't you? Anyhow, but I get mean. I hear about that marble, and I said, and I sneak into your room some night, and I snatch it from underneath your pillow, and I then fill up the entire known universe with red marbles and hide your blue marble behind some galaxy out there. Then I come back and say, okay, I hid your marble, and I put you in a spaceship, blindfold you, send you out as far as you want, any direction you want. What's the chance you're going to find that simple marble? Well, it turns out you're not going to find it at all, right? However, if you're so lucky, and I hide it again and again, if you could find that thing 3 times in a row in the entire known universe, that'll be 100 million times easier than making that one simple protein. I'd say, it looks like there was a designer that makes these proteins and knows what he's doing. And by the way, do you know it takes DNA to make proteins? And yet it takes proteins to make DNA. So which came first, right? And that's just a protein. That wasn't a whole cell. What's the probability of getting a whole cell strictly by accident? Well, an atheist and an agnostic calculated the chances. It was 1 chance in 10 to the 40,000th power. Whoa! They then compared that to The chance of a tornado sweeping through a junkyard and producing a Boeing 747 complete and ready to fly out of the debris. It's not going to happen. They then said there must be a God. Actually quoted in the newspapers. All right, did they run out and buy a Bible to find out about that God? No. They said we are still looking for a way around our conclusions. Why did they say that? Because they're committed to the philosophy of naturalism, the worldview, and even in the face of evidence. So what's the answer here? George Wald said clear back, I believe in 1954, he says about these tremendous odds, he says time is in fact the hero of the plot. We have 2 billion years. Given so much time, anything becomes possible. And in fact, the possible becomes probable, and the probable virtually certain. One only has to wait. Time performs the miracles. You know, I did the calculations. I found out George Wald could not have considered even any potential of those, doing the mathematics behind it. But as a mathematician, I wanted to check it out. No, time is not the hero of the plot. It will not work. And so in the end game, you might say, what if all the data point to intelligent designer? According to Dr. Scott Todd, doesn't matter. Such an hypothesis is excluded from science because it is not naturalistic. Not naturalistic. Do you realize students are being put in a box, not able to think outside of that box? If it involves anything on the supernatural, well, I can't go there. Well, I don't like being put in a box, and I hope you don't like that either, and I don't think you want your children to be put in that box, right? That's why I keep saying evolution is not science. It's a philosophy. Posing as though it is science is the pillar of the naturalistic worldview. You know, if it's a philosophy, Scripture does warn us about it. See to it that no one takes you captive through philosophy and vain deception. That's Colossians 2:8. Right? Don't be taken captive by, say, evolutionary philosophy. It's a great time to be a believer. There are so many articles coming out. In fact, one after another, all talking about the complexity, the DNA, junk DNA, not being junk, etc. It's a great day to be a Bible-believing creationist. But you know what? It's even greater to find out just who this Creator God is. Who is this Creator God? Well, we look around us, we find out, God is an artist. And he loves beauty, doesn't he? It could have been a black and white world, but no, there's beauty wherever you look. Even in a droplet of water where you can't even see it without a microscope, what do you see? Tremendous order, tremendous design, and there's no eye to be able to see. So natural selection's not going to favor one over the other as far as sight goes, right? And that's in a droplet of water. You even go inside of that one cell and you find even more complexity of the DNA and all the stuff that's going on there, all the molecular machines. And you say, wow, we have an amazing Creator God. But we can tell that God is interested in the details of his creation when we see that. But you know what? He's not only interested in the details in the small part of the creation. Look out into the universe. What do you see? Tremendous order, tremendous design. That tells me God is interested in the big picture as well. Scripture in 147 verse 4 says, God numbers the stars and calls them all by name. What does that tell me? He's powerful. He's very powerful, isn't he? But you know, the verse right before this, 147:3 actually says, He, this God, heals the brokenhearted and binds up all their wounds. Wow. This is a God that's all powerful, and yet he cares for us to even bind up our wounds. Now, this is a powerful God that we can worship. He's a loving God, a caring God, and all-powerful. As I look at around me, all around, I say the evidence cries out, it screams out. Things were created with a design. They couldn't just happen. There is a God. There is a creator God. And you can believe your Bible. 100% of it. Just to let you know, again, I wanted to mention our free newsletter, Think and Believe. And make sure you go to our website or call us, and we'll get that thing on the way to you. Comes out once every 2 months. Or take part in one of our camps and tours. For instance, unfortunately, you did miss our creation tour this year of Costa Rica, but you can check with us, and hopefully we can set a date in the future for one. We do have one other tour that's available right now. Still, you can sign up for our tour of Yellowstone National Park, okay? So come on to Yellowstone with us, and we'll give you a creationist tour of that. And that's coming up at the very last part of August. All right. Some of the resources available for you. Our DVD set is really good from the standpoint that you can use it in youth groups, Sunday school class. How about your home study groups? Christian schools, homeschools, doesn't matter. And we've got a special price going for only $35. That's 12 different sessions on the DVD, and includes a 75-page full-color study guide. And that's all part of the price. It's just an amazing deal for you. Again, I already mentioned Dr. Carter's high-tech cell DVD, only $10, tremendous. You want to know about the fossil record? And by the way, fossil records coming up is a separate program coming up very soon. Make sure you get in on that one too, as you do the virtual creation seminar tour. Anyhow, you want to look at contested bones, includes the latest on human evolution, the global flood. We're going to be talking about the flood as well, but this is a tremendous resource for you. We mentioned Dr. Sanford and his book, Genetic Entropy. Great book. It's a great book. And basically it'll show you why mutation and natural selection does not work. It's very interesting to give that to a university professor. For your whole family, every day you can have a little piece of creation. Every day has one small section. Have you considered day-by-day devotion? If that's in color too, and it's only $14 for all of that. Wonderful resource. In fact, there are a couple more resources than that. Have you considered is one of them. The other one is inspired evidence. All these things are devotionals for your family to be able to do. Guidebooks to the national parks. Again, a wonderful series for your family. Unlocking the Mystery of Creation. This is good for ages, I'm going to say 5 to 105. Okay? Again, showing this whole gambit of creation versus evolution. Kids love dinosaurs, right? And so we have important books and DVDs for your families. Your Guide to Dinosaurs, your Dragons or Dinosaur DVD, really important to understand. Get the kids involved as well as the older folks as well. Dragons, what's the connection between dinosaurs and dragons, I wonder? Get these resources. You will find out, or come to the session I'll be doing soon on dinosaurs and the Bible. If you live here in Grand Junction, which I would really encourage you to come down to our center. We're only 1/2 block south of the Colorado Mesa University, and it's out of here that we're doing our launching into Colorado Mesa University, our ministry outreach into the universities there. We're on 10th and Belford, just 1/2 block south of Colorado Mesa University. And so please come see us down there, all right? And you can believe your Bible. That's the thing I want to leave you with today. And you can just from design, and you can from geology, and you can from a lot of different fields, even astronomy. And so, discover creation. Worship your Creator. God bless you.
All right, thank you all for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Mary Jo that, yeah, this issue, creation and evolution, it's pretty important, isn't it? It's really a spiritual issue. And hearing from Dave all the tremendous evidence of God's design, and just, wow, what a God we serve. Isn't that amazing? So we hope you join us later. You can see the information here on the screen where we'll be teaching so much more. We could just have a ton more for you guys coming up. We're just going to have a ton of fun with all of it. We've got more biology. We've got flood geology. We've got fossils, dinosaurs. Who doesn't love dinosaurs, right? And of course, my favorite, astronomy. I love astronomy and just how the heavens declare the glory of God, how there's just so much scientific evidence that points to the truth of God and the Bible. We hope you'll join us later for that. We also invite your friends, invite your family. We've heard many testimonies of people coming that were not believers, and this strengthened their faith or gave them new faith that you can trust God and the Bible. This is a spiritual issue. Some people hold science up as or even as a stumbling block for them, as an excuse to not turn to Christ. And so we hope that you'll take advantage of this, that we're going to be having actually live question and answer time as well during this digital conference. So bring questions, bring people who have questions. We love to talk to people, even people that don't believe the same way that we do, because I think we definitely have the answers on our side, don't we? In fact, we're even going to have some times of sharing testimonies and things throughout the couple of times of events here. So join us. Connect with us. We'd love to even meet you in person. We'd love for you to get involved with our ministry, where we have a lot of outreach opportunities that we're trying to incorporate with different things. So, but join us at least for this digital conference coming up very soon. And again, if you want more information, check us out, discovercreation.org, where you can support us right there. You can check up on us on Facebook and like us there, our page, Alpha Omega Institute, or YouTube, where we put up videos like these. So hope you enjoyed. Again, God bless you, and hope to see you soon. Thanks.